But I think it'd be helpful for the public to know when we reconvene, do you want to hear more testimony on Commissioner Stoddard's ordinance, or do you want to move to our discussion of it?
I think we probably should move forward with our discussion.
Is that agreeable? Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll take a 10-minute break, just to give people a chance to stand up and talk. Then we will move to commission discussion of what we're going to do next. And then after that, we'll have the public comment period. It'll be limited to 3 minutes. And the people we'll call will be Ben Manat, Michael Ward, and Linda Hayes, all of whom have been called already and decided that they prefer to testify in the public comment period rather than specifically to Commissioner Stoddard's ordinance. So let's take about a 10-minute break. The issue before us is essentially where do we go next? And what I'd like to do is, since Commissioner Stoddard has an issue put the issue on the table to see what you would like to do now. And then we'll just go right down the line. And what I'm looking for, well, let's hear from Commissioner Stoddard and then we'll go from there.
What I would like to see, Keith's not back here.
Yeah, okay, so we'll wait a couple minutes. That'll give us a chance to think about what we want to say. Okay, so what we're going to do, Keith, is we're going to have, just go down the line and ask people what you think we should do coming out of this meeting. And I asked Commissioner Stoddard to start because it's his basic ordinance that's on the table.
What I would like to see, if it works for everybody on the commission, is I'd like to work with Mr. Springfield and his staff this week, and until they can get it correct from all the suggestions from the planning and zoning commissioners up to this point, get that draft out to everybody. And I would like to see if you would all consider having a workshop meeting at our next meeting, which would give us hopefully a week, a little bit better to look at the document after it's been revised.
Okay. So
Thank you.
You want can we schedule a meeting as quickly as a week? What are the public requirements if it's a workshop?
72 hours for a workshop. We can do it within a week. Your next
No, excuse me, what I was hoping for was for us to get this done within this week, if it's possible. And then that way we have a week to review it and bring it up at our next meeting, not to have a workshop in a week, but make our next scheduled meeting a workshop.
Your next scheduled meeting is September 12th.
Okay.
And that's already scheduled. The schedule's already out there. It's
Is that
easy enough for us to make that a work
Is
session.
that having our meetings every 2 weeks?
Yes. Yes.
Is that right? No, I think that's, yeah, that is right. Because
August 22nd and September 12th.
Hey Mike, that's not going to interfere with conditional use issues?
No. The regular meeting is September 26th, and those cases have been pushed to the 26th.
Okay, so so on the 12th, we will do oil and gas, specifically on the text that you and Commissioner Stoddard work on and make available in advance so we can all read it and think about it.
Correct.
Okay, and the following meeting, we will not do oil and gas. We will do the 2 local applications that have already been filed and that we defer.
Well, then I would recommend that you just hold a regular meeting on September 12th and leave it to yourselves which way you want to proceed on the ordinance. If you agree with staff and Commissioner Stoddard's changes to the ordinance, then you would be able to act on that at that time if you wanted to. It just gives you more flexibility. A work session, you cannot take action.
Yeah. So do a regular session rather than have
It
a
gives
work
us a
session.
chance to sit down and discuss.
Is,
You can discuss at a regular meeting too. You can run it as a work session, you can do it as a work session, but it's called as a public hearing and you can
Well,
do
I
it that way.
understand that, but we're all gonna wait for the information that has come, that we're asking for the staff to put
Right.
together for the next meeting.
Right, we would hope to have that to you at least a week ahead of time, if not sooner.
That'd be
And post it on the web so everybody can read
great.
it.
Everybody can see it.
Right,
Okay, so let's be clear, so it's gonna be a regular meeting, not a work session. And-
we're recommending
Yeah,
that.
Commissioner Brown said he'd prefer a work session, so let me make sure that,
Well, that's fine as long as we're communicating with one another about the changes and we have time to review it.
Right.
If I understand our path forward is September 12th, we should have a ordinance ready for an up or down vote? Is that what I'm understanding?
We will get with Commissioner Stoddard, the legal staff, the assistant director. We will make the changes that we have the notes on. We will have that out to you just as soon as we can. I'm hoping we can have this all done by the end of the week, this week. And out to you as soon as possible for your review. Post it on the web so the public can see what we've done. And then we would just hold a regular meeting on the 12th as scheduled, as approved. And then it's up to you how you want to proceed.
Mr. Springfield, Chairman, then seeing that that meeting is 3 weeks away, I would just put it out there, if the commissioners would like to have a workshop in between that and our next scheduled meeting, because there is 3 weeks, if they can get it done by the end of this week, we could possibly do something the week of the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever you would like as a workshop, and then the following week come back for our regular scheduled meeting, if that works.
I'm good.
I would think that's reasonable.
So you want a work session on the 5th?
If that works with everybody's schedule, if that's what the commission wants.
that's the day after the Labor Day holiday.
Correct. Monday, the 4th is a holiday.
Correct.
So is that okay to do a work session on the 5th?
Yeah.
I think that would help us to resolve any possible questions we have, so the staff would have time to finalize it, so we could just put it to the public and then have a vote on the 12th. Does that make sense?
So understanding that we can't take action on the 5th, we're just going to discuss and perfect. And then the 12th will be the meeting at which we would take action. Is that, everybody clear on that?
I don't know, Mr. Trio, is that good with you?
Yeah, I'm all for a work session prior to, coming here with a final, thumbs up or down on this thing. I think we need time to be able to discuss some of the issues that have been brought forth by both of the commissioners and the public and industry. And I think just try to make it, make sure we clarify and get everything down on paper. But I think a workshop would work well. I don't know if there's a doable date, but you're saying the 5th right now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then we'll shoot for it, we'll see who can make it, and then we'll go from there. But I think it's important for us to kind of get together and try to resolve some of these issues as commissioners.
So we'll go ahead and schedule the 5th as a work session and the 12th as a regular meeting.
For oil and gas, a regular meeting for oil and gas.
Correct. Yeah, and so we're going
Yes,
to defer to
on the
the
12th.
26th, the 2 local proposals?
Yes,
Okay. So make sure that we notify the applicants.
notices have already been sent out.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
So now, Mike has a list, I have a list, but if there's issues you want to make sure that Commissioner Stoddard and Michael and his staff discuss, this would be a good time to just make sure that they're on Michael's list, so.
Michael, I would like for you to maybe discuss it with the staff and see if this ordinance can also include oil, gas, and geothermal, because to me, it's basically, they go through the permitting with OCD and for that process as well. And basically, it's the same surface
Right.
requirement. So I think we would be able to cover that as well.
We have geothermal down, it's one of the issues.
Okay, thank you.
Steve,
And then, Mr.
take
Chair.
your thing?
Yeah, Michael, just like I mentioned before, just the externality of costs, understanding what costs could be in the process, okay? If you could look at that, I'd appreciate that.
So, Aparcio, I guess we're going down this way, I'll come back to you. Any particular issues that you want?
No, I'm in agreement with Mr. Trujillo, I'm in agreement with the workshop that we're gonna have.
Okay.
I'm a little bit, have an issue with timing, but I'm gonna try to work my schedule.
Great, okay, great. Yeah, if it turns out, when you get home and you have a chance to look at your more detailed schedules, if it turns out that you're not going to be able to attend, let Michael know right away, because the whole idea of a work session is to give all of us a chance to exchange ideas, and if we're not, if there's only going to be 4 of us here, then I think we need to reconsider.
And Mr. Chairman, can they call in for these workshops also?
Yeah, or call in for a workshop, yeah. In fact, that-
The only bad days on that week are the 4th, which is a holiday, and the 7th, which is a regular county commission meeting, the first Thursday of the month.
Okay, so other than those 2 dates, it could
Right.
be any time that week.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Wednesday, actually, that week would be better for me. I mean,
Sorry?
Wednesday would be better than
Would be
Tuesday.
better for me, yes.
So you want to move it to the 6th would work better?
If that works better, that's fine.
Yeah.
It would for me, yeah.
So Wednesday, the 6th. So check the 5th and check the 6th and see which works better, and send an email or call Michael and let him know, and we'll pick the date where most people can attend.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, Michael, I want to make sure we put on the financial assistance for emergency services too. I know that was brought up. So make sure we address that also, please. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, and roads, something,
He's-
road maintenance is a real
Right.
stickler for our commissioner.
Right.
Okay, so the central issue for me remains the same one, which is I need to have clearly delineated what role the county is going to play, if any, once the applicant submits the necessary documents that are listed in Stoddard's, or Commissioner Stoddard's draft. Is there going to be any formal review? Is there going to be consultation with any of the affected county departments such as roads, the sheriff, the fire department, and so forth? And if so, and ultimately, is there going to be a public hearing? And if there is going to be a public hearing, is the issue going to be considered as a conditional use or a special use, or, well, I guess those would be the only 2 options.
Right. We have that as the second thing
Right.
to look at.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Otherwise,
One other comment that,
Sure.
Mr. Springfield has already mentioned that he's gonna be meshing in the county ordinance with Commissioner Stoddard's ordinance, so that's something that I would really like to see in the next draft, is a real meshing.
Yeah, the categories that the applicant needs to
No.
address
No,
are
I
virtually.
don't think I heard that.
What we do is we have some language in the staff's draft. Again, just to go through this, I explained this to Commissioner Stoddard. In the staff draft, the processing is exactly the same as what I think I'm reading in this ordinance for 90% of the county. It's only in the urban area where it's different, and it's a conditional use permit. So we have language, I think, that will fit from the staff's draft into this ordinance that won't mess with the intent or any of that, and I think it'll help the process go quicker.
Yeah, and that, I mean, remember your issue, and when we see the draft that came out of the meetings with Commissioner Stoddard and Michael, we can, you know, we'll spring off that. Are all the things that you want included covered, and is it covered in the way that you want it covered? But we can, the advantage of a workshop is it gives us a chance to get into the details. Okay.
Maybe for me, for just clarification, is that, to me, there's the urban areas, the rural areas, and definitely there's differences in how things are done and regulated in each section. A lot of that hasn't come out within this ordinance, because that includes mapping and that includes other factors. But I think it's important to note somewhere that there's, you know, maybe the noise decibels are different, you know, in the rural versus the urban areas, or whatever the case may be. And now these standards are pretty basic, you know, and they don't really tie to whether it's rural or urban. And I think that's where a lot of maybe confusion is on our behalf, because it's basically one standard process right now.
Correct. If you will, Mr. Chairman, the difference between the staff's draft ordinance and this draft ordinance is that we call it relief.
Right.
This ordinance calls it a variance. But the same mechanism is in both ordinances, where an applicant can come in and ask for relief because of a different situation.
Correct.
They're out in the middle of nowhere and nobody is being affected, they can ask for that relief. One of Commissioner Block's comments, I remember at a meeting we had discussing this process, was that he wanted a countywide rule, that it not be different between urban and rural, that everybody be treated the same. So this does that.
The other one that occurred to me as I was listening to the Commissioner is this difference between production, exploration and production, whether, you know, since there's 2 permits that are required in sequence from the OCD, I think we need somehow to recognize that in the, I mean, I have, personally, I have trouble understanding how someone would drill an exploratory well not being certain that if there's oil there, they're going to get a production permit. But that's the way that OCD has set things up, and I think that has to be reflected in our consideration of the applications.
It will. And I have that as one of the issues too, is to deal with the issues of exploration and production.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, because otherwise we'll move to public comment.
I have just a couple of things. One of the things that I kind of mentioned earlier about the guidance, if we could capture all the guidance that we have, you know, the person or the company that went to drill, all the things that they had to meet as far as laws, and then just a layman's terms of what that provides us at the beginning of the document or wherever you think is appropriate.
Mr. Chairman, we have, of course, the list of preemptions that is in the staff's draft, and it lists all the preemptions and all of the laws that are covered for this activity. Now, we have sent you just a generic, what does this mean? And, you know, that's like 5 or 6 pages of stuff. And then I know that you were asking for then a layman's explanation of what the generic description meant.
Right.
So, I mean, just that alone would be longer than this whole ordinance if we tried to include that. Now, I would suggest that you do include the list of preemptions. I think that's important that the county recognize that we are preempted on a lot of rules that cover this activity. And I think we can provide you with a handsheet, a commissioner's working document that will explain all that for you, and then we can get with the county attorney and we can work on practical, these are do's, these are don'ts. And I think we can post that for the public for their knowledge and everything.
And
I
that's
don't think
what
it's
I'm shooting
productive to
at.
put it in an ordinance.
That's what I'm shooting at. I think too many ordinances are lawyer speak, another person.
They are.
But I'd like it to be able to be readable for the public so that they know what is covered and what isn't.
Okay.
And it'll probably cut down a lot of concerns when it comes to, you know, we need to add this to the county ordinance. It's already covered. We don't need to deal with that. The second thing was, it was mentioned that OCD has a checklist format that if it's possible to have you also start building that in regards to the process that they have to go through with the county. A checklist of some sort to
Sure.
go along with this ordinance, so that as we move forward with an ordinance, there's a checklist that goes along with it and is prepared.
We have that normally for any applicant for anything in the county anyway, so when you come in, we can do the checklist, and it tells you everything that you have to do. We do that from homes to conditional uses to special uses in some cases. So we do that to make it easier on the applicant, so they know what they need. So as soon as staff finds out what it is that's being approved, then we will develop that checklist as soon as possible. Of course, an ordinance doesn't go into effect for 30 days until after it's adopted anyway. So that gives us time to set our administrative practices.
It would just be helpful to me, I think, to kind of see that checklist kind of being built and put together. Even if it's a rough draft, I think it would be good for our working session to kind of give us an idea of what are you looking at as the P and Z.
What I'm looking at is this ordinance as
Right.
it's being presented, and the checklist would be developed off of this ordinance.
Is it unreasonable to have a draft of it?
No.
Okay.
Anything else? So, let's try at first for 15 minutes of public comment, and if that's not enough, we can extend it. I prefer not to go past 9:30, because that's 3.5-hour meeting, is plenty long. So as I said before, I'm first gonna call the people that were called earlier and chose to speak in public comment, and rather than specifically about the ordinance. So the first person would be Ben Manak.